Yet, contrary to what some vulgar economists want you to believe, individuals are not free to buy and sell commodities at any price they want. This is because exchange is not just a fleeting, isolated contract between two individuals. Each exchange is part of a vast web of exchanges, which unites the productive labors of society. This is what it means for an individual's labor to become social. When this happens, society acts back upon the individual, disciplining their labor to make sure that they are doing socially useful labor at something near average productivity. Thus, the transition from individual value to social value isn't a random one. It has law-like properties that govern the connection between the private labors of millions of individuals and the aggregate social labor process. These law-like properties that link our private labors to their social value is what Marx calls the law of value. There are two basic forces that govern the way individual values become social values. The first is average productivity. Let's say the average widget maker takes 1 hour to make a widget. This social average is the social value of the commodity, the amount of time society requires to make a widget. But I am old and slow. I take 3 hours. This is the individual value. My individual value is higher than the social value. But that doesn't mean I can sell my widget for more. I must sell at the social average. Marx calls this socially necessary labor time. In this case, the determination of social value is made not by my individual labor time, but by the average productivity of society. If the socially necessary labor time changes due to changes in productivity, then the individual value and the social value will change too. The second factor is the interaction of supply and demand. Supply is determined by the total amount of labor that goes into making widgets and the productivity of that labor. But when we go to the widget factory, we do not know how much labor as a whole society is devoting to making widgets. There could be 1 million other people making widgets or only a few. We only learn how much labor society has put into widget making when we enter the market and compare the products of our labor with the rest of society. If too much labor goes into widget making, then there is an oversupply of widgets. Their social value falls below their individual value. If not enough work has gone into widgets, there is an undersupply, and their social value rises above their individual value. These deviations trigger changes in the allocation of labor. But what about demand? Isn't demand a random subjective element in the equation? As we will see later on in the video on supply and demand, demand traces its power back to the labor process as well. Demand isn't just an abstract psychological substance. It's a definite amount of purchasing power made of workers' wages and capitalists' profits. Even the things demanded, be they inputs for the production process or subsistence goods for maintaining the worker, are needs generated by the structure of production. People's demand for things change as the value of those things change. When the average productivity of widgets rises, their value falls, and the demand for them rises because now they are cheaper. So rather than demand existing in some subjective vacuum, it is always dependent on a pre-existing world of values. But, most important to the mud pie theory, demand doesn't create the social value of a commodity. It only helps determine if labor has been apportioned to the right tasks. Labor is creating the value. Labor is doing the work. Demand tells us if this labor has been socially useful. But the demand can't create commodities, nor can it be separated from the web of social labor. You might notice that when you go to the grocery store, there isn't a mud pie aisle filled with unsold mud pies. Though capitalist production involves this element of guessing, this uncertainty of transforming private labor into social labor, this doesn't mean that capitalist production is totally random and absurdist. If exchange was random and sporadic, then there would be no way for the division of labor to be coordinated. But exchange is not random and sporadic. It is constant. Every act of exchange links the buyer and seller in a complex network of buying and selling that connects all buyers and sellers everywhere. This constant interaction of production and exchange means that most of the time we have a pretty good idea of what social labor is. We don't go around making mud pies, or bicycles with square wheels, or hip-hop polka records. Sellers are constantly saying, this is how much labor went into this commodity, and so this is what we think it's worth. Buyers are constantly saying, less labor should go here, more labor should go there. The constant interaction of buyers and sellers apportions labor to the right tasks. This is only made possible by the fact that there is a correspondence between the labor that goes into something and its price. But this correspondence is loose, constantly fluctuating. The mud pie theorists display their ignorance by arguing that these deviations between individual and social value are a flaw in the theory of value. In actuality, these fluctuations are a crucial part of the theory. They are the mechanism by which social labor is apportioned. Underlying these fluctuations of demand and supply lies a more basic observation about a society organized through the law of value. We only have so much time as a society to devote to the production of our needs. If we are to have food, houses, clothes, DVDs, and beer, we are going to have to devote work to these things. Some things take a lot more labor to produce than others. They cost society more in terms of its expenditure of the total social labor. In a market society, this cost isn't decided by a committee. It's decided by prices in the market. The relation between workers takes the form of relations between commodities in the market. This is what value is, the relation between producers expressed through market prices.